Hello everyone. So, yeah, I spent another 2 months without uploading simply because I was busy working on more stuff that I will not disclose yet because I don't have clearance to disclose it. This time I'm drinking coffee. But today I want to talk about Phantom Forces because, well, I make stuff for Phantom Forces. But not in the sense of which gun or which map or which thing or what should be added, but rather I want to criticize an aspect not many people think about, which is the lore of the game. Like, yeah, Phantom Forces has lore, and it's really crappy lore, in my opinion. Like, people, like, whenever I bring this up, people will say, oh my god, Phantom Forces doesn't need lore, stop bringing it up. And I say, yeah, Phantom Forces didn't need lore, but it has it. And if it's gonna have lore, we should do it right. So, here are my criticisms to Phantom Forces lore. So, one of the first flaws I see in Phantom Forces lore overall is the lack of characterization the groups have beyond the stereotypical faction with no morals that fights for money. Like, close quotes. Basically, this description of faction that only fights for money and doesn't care for morals is so overused and generic that I could use it as a staple for something like Shadow Company in Modern Warfare 2 or Black Ops in Black Ops 3. Like, the mercs in Black Ops 2 also have that problem. But it doesn't have to be this way. Like, for instance, you take the Diamond Dogs from Metal Gear Solid. They're more characterized, but that's because they're the main characters faction. Like, it would be very in very bad taste if they were just another generic PMC. But they get more characterization than the usual PMC. Like, you get to know that it is just a personality cult centered around Snake. But in Phantom Forces, you're just generic PMC, you fight for money, morals are not your problem. But, like, I don't really think it should be that way. Like, yeah, it may be a kids game, but Splatoon's also a kids game, and it has a more serious and developed lore than this game has. Now, the other problem is that these factions are not really given much motivations other than the typical they're fighting for money, and that's not much of a case for other games. Like, Modern Warfare may be basic with its factions, but at least they tell you that the Jackals fight as a rebel faction against Alcatala. Same with the other Russian PMC that's in the game. Shadow Company is just Shadow Company, so it's the same problem we have with Phantom Forces lore. And then there's the Coalition, which is NATO, so Shadow Company all over again. Thing is, at least other games try to flesh out the motivations of their PMCs. For instance, The Division, where you're fighting a PMC, but they aren't fighting for money, but rather because they are trapped in New York City, fighting against the other rebel factions along fighting the player. So, yeah, the main problem with the Phantom Forces lore is that it doesn't flesh out its main factions, while other games like, case on point, Team Fortress 2, which is pretty much the same concept of mercenaries fighting each other, but at least Team Fortress 2 fleshed out Teams Red and Blue very well, and maybe Phantom Forces' lore could take a hint from Team Fortress. The second problem with the current Phantom Forces lore is that it's visibly dated and it just doesn't account for the newer, more recent inclusions to the game's world. Like, this lore was basically stems off a sort of ARG game that happened back in 2016, 2017, when some of the stylish Discord mods just made bot accounts sort of for Phantoms and Ghosts and dished it out like in the announcements and in the subreddit too. But that was pretty much it for the lore. Like, even then, there's the official lore, which I'm linking in the description, that Mar wrote. And even then, that lore is just very lackluster and it doesn't account for many things. Like, for instance, the broker, the dude that shows up in the gun customization page, that dude's not mentioned anywhere. And it's just a big mystery, like, where does this dude come from? How does he get our guns? Because he's supposed to be the dude that gets our guns. How does he get his hands on a gun that's literally only a prototype and has never been crafted, like the AN-94 7.62 by 39mm version, or the DBV-12, which is literally non-existent. Like, another good example of this is how Anti is in the lobby with us. Like, it's an actual person in the lobby with us, but Anti is supposed to just be a mascot. Like, yeah, it could be a cosplayer and whatnot, but even then, why would the cosplayer be at a gun shop for mercenaries? I don't understand. Like, the lore doesn't go that much into detail and it doesn't account for other future editions, with the ones I've mentioned, and the third one, which I just noticed. There's decals that mention there being more factions than just ghosts and phantoms, but there's no mention of them in the lore. There's no mention of those extra factions anywhere. So, I guess, what's the point then? Just more factions, because more factions and more factions. Yes. I mean, that's one of the weak points of the lore. It doesn't account for more recent inclusions into the game's world, into the Phantom Forces universe. I'm gonna call it for convenience. I'm sorry. I'm gonna use that name for convenience now. I'm sorry. So, you may be wondering, how can we improve this lore? Well, pretty much just start from scratch, just make something new all over again. Like, that's pretty much all there is to it. Like, would be a story that accounted for stuff like the broker or what the broker does, and also expands on it while also using the extra factions in a more meaningful way than just background stuff that nobody really pays attention to. And I guess nothing else, really. Like, for what it is, it's simple, but it's not good. Like, it's decent, but it could be way better if some more competence was put into it. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. I hope you liked it, and I'm hopefully going to resume more frequent uploads, hopefully weekly uploads. And yeah, that's it. See ya.